Thanks for tuning in to the World XP podcast. If you're enjoying the content, please drop us up, drop a like, and let us know your thoughts below in the comments. Also, please consider supporting our podcast via the link below. It really helps us out. Welcome, Logan, to the World XP podcast. I've figured out that you have the most Olympic-ready name there is, Logan Savvy. Dude, imagine that Logan Savvy, gold medalist, just rolls off the tongue. For those listening, Logan is a Greco-Roman wrestler. He's preparing for the U.S. Open and then shortly afterwards the Olympic trials. But I appreciate your time and welcome.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
So for those listening, can you correct all of the things that I just said, please, about what you're doing?
Well, yeah, no. So you hit the nail on the head about the U.S. Open. That's my next immediate competition on April 25th and 26th, and then after that will be the World Team Trials. So this is all preparation for the Olympic trials, but that's going to take place next year, 2024.
Gotcha.
But still got a world tournament this year. Still got to make the team and set myself up.
There you go. Okay, so for those listening, well, I'll say for myself, and I think people that are not inherently in the wrestling world, like when you're in the US, your high school has a wrestling team and all that, and then you hear this term Greco-Roman wrestling thrown around, and you're like, what? Like for me, when I heard that, I was like, what is the difference between that and just like wrestling? Like so I guess what is the difference, or like how did it pop up, and how did the branches kind of spin off, and how do you decide, I guess, as you become better, which one you're gonna do? Because you mentioned before when we were talking before, you mentioned freestyle being the other option. How do you decide which one you want to go into, and then what are the differences?
Well, I think everybody definitely has a different path that leads them to Greco when you're coming up under the American system, because it's not very common or practiced in our country. It's not the same as like it is over here. So I'm in Denmark right now, and they have an entire culture built around Greco-Roman wrestling. Um, all the Nordic nations, all the European nations, like it's their main style. So I actually kind of got bribed into it. I grew up wrestling folk style, since I was like 5 years old, and I've always wanted to be in the Olympics. Like, that was any Olympic games that were on. Like I'm in front of the TV the whole time watching every sport. And so as a wrestler, in America, like being an Olympic gold medalist or even trying to make the games, it's not realistic unless you pick an Olympic style, right? So if you grow up wrestling folk style your whole life, eventually you're going to have to make a choice. So um, I wrestled folk style for probably like 18, 19 years. And I was training at Cornell University. And I just, my mission was just to become the best wrestler that I possibly could, right? So I had competed for freestyle for like 2 years out of college, and I was like, well, if I never wrestle Greco-Roman, if I don't train it, then I can't say that I've become the best wrestler possible, because I I finished my career without doing it, like completely omitting a style. So I talked to the coach about it. I was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna train and compete in Greco and freestyle this year. And he's like, okay, that's cool. And then a month later, they sit me down. They're like, listen, nobody's an Olympic champion in both styles, so like you have to pick, right? And I got kind of quiet, and then the Greco coach chimes up. He's a two-time Olympian from Iran. He's like, well, if you do Greco, like we'll go to Sweden, we'll go here, we'll go there. I was like, well, okay, say less. Like, what do you mean? So, and he held up to his word. We went to like 4 different countries that year, and I got to experience, the cultures in these other countries, and it really opened my eyes to what Greco had to offer. Um, it's actually very, very easy to make relationships and, continue to grow in the sport past college, especially if you choose Greco, because all you had to do is go across the pond, and then these people are living and breathing it. So I don't really, I hate when people call me lucky, right? I don't like to use the word luck, because I put myself in scenarios that are going to benefit myself, but I do feel lucky that I was exposed to like the European styles early on, because it helped me catapult myself past people that have just grown up wrestling Greco in America, right? It's kind of like big fish in a small pond scenario. you can be good domestically, uh, and then you go over here and there's like 17, 16 year olds throwing you around. It's completely different how they do it. So yeah, it's been a really big benefit to kind of get exposed that way and grow my passion.
So what's the differences between Greco-Roman and the style here in the US? Like, was it a massive difference for you when you decided that you were going to switch, or is it just like a few like minute sort of details, or how, I guess, how big is the difference? Like, because in my head, I'm a soccer player thinking outdoor soccer 11v11 to arena soccer 5v5 with walls. It's like not even the same sport, still called
Right.
soccer. Like for wrestling, is it kind of, how big is the difference?
I mean, it's probably very similar to what you just mentioned. Greco is almost a different sport to folk style, mainly because the rule set is, uh, you're not allowed to use your legs offensively or defensively, right? There's no trips, there's no shots. It's all hand fighting, pummeling, and throws, right? So if you go grabbing legs your whole life and then all of a sudden they're taken out of the equation, yeah, it's a big shock. It was a very, very humbling transition because I've been doing this sport my whole life and then all of a sudden I'm starting from scratch. Like I, the first 3 months, I felt like I didn't even know how to wrestle, right? And then it honestly took me 2 years to adjust to the rule set, like in competition, to where I felt confident enough to actually have a strategy as opposed to going out there just like you know, letting it fly. Like I'm just gonna score points and see what happens. So big difference. There's a lot more strategy and gamesmanship in Greco, um, because the way that the rules are set up. So the ground wrestling is called parterre, which is a French word that means on the ground, and you're very basically defenseless, right? You lay on your stomach, you put your hands out. You're not allowed to like use your hands to break their grip, and you have to defend yourself just by moving, like kind of like army crawling on the ground. And while you're doing that, the guy's on top of you. He can lock his hands, and there's a move called a gut wrench where they just roll you, exposure back to the mat, or they can lift you up and throw you. Right. So the way the scoring works, uh, exposure is 2 points. If you throw somebody feet to back, it's four. And if you go feet to back with amplitude, meaning going over your head, it's five. Like their feet go over their head and they land on their back, it's 5 points. A match will end once you get to 8 points. So really after two throws, if you can't stop them, it's over. It can go pretty quick. Um, Obviously you can still pin people and then you can win by points. So there's 2 3 minute periods with a 30-second break in between. Um, and it's against the rules to not be in contact with your opponent. So it's
Not be in contact.
yeah. So there's
How
no
how
backing
strict
up.
how strict is that called? Because I watched a video, one video that you posted, and you were kind of like hand fighting with the guy, and like there was a time when it would like you guys would both like not back up, but like is it like, is there a time limit? Because I'm trying to think, like you gotta be touched like in contact the whole time. That seems, I don't know.
So the term is called negative wrestling, right? So
Mm.
say you push somebody, right?
Hmm.
You push them off and you're just constantly evading and not working to attack and score points or advance your position. Then that's negative wrestling. And after a while, like the ref will give you a verbal warning like, hey, blue contact or like blue action. Um, and if you fail to kind of meet the standards of the referee at the time, then you'll get hit for passivity, which is a 1 point penalty, and then they put you down in parterre. So it's in your best interest to try to remain in contact. There are obviously times where there is separation, but part of the game and strategy and technique is learning how to close distance, without leaving yourself open. So it's like I said, there's a lot of gamesmanship involved in Greco, and you really have to understand the rules and be able to play the game, or somebody's going to take advantage of that.
Mm. I want to ask one question before I forget, and then go back to the rules because this is super interesting, especially the parterre thing. I know there's a lot of UFC or MMA guys that started off as wrestlers. When you were young, what led you to this path rather than, and I want to do jujitsu or learn how to do striking and go that route?
Honestly, I've just been obsessed with wrestling since I started. Like it was my first love in life, like hands down. I started when I was 5. I'm super competitive, and I have an older brother. Right, he's 4.5 years older than me. So when I found out he was going to start wrestling, I was like, "Hey, mom, like I want to do it too." And I had a lot of success early on, and I knew that that was going to be a path to the Olympics, and so that's been one of my main motivating factors. There's no Olympics for UFC or jiu-jitsu. Like I understand, like there's world tournaments, and it seems like jiu-jitsu guys have a different medal every week, so there's lots of competitions. um
You're not wrong.
okay, we're back.
And we're back. Okay.
What was the last thing that you heard?
Jiu-jitsu guys have a lot of medals every week. And
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
like, yes.
every every other week they're like, oh, you know I'm a world champion, and there was like 6 people in my bracket. But anyways, my motivation has really always been the Olympics, and wrestling was going to be the path that I took to get there. So
Gotcha.
I respect these other disciplines. I do a lot of cross training, and I find ways that to relate them and elevate my game, even if it's just like body awareness or situationally, um,
Mhm.
getting my body used to responding certain ways. But yeah, it's just I think wrestling's the coolest sport on the planet.
Yeah. Because do you know Manny,
I also love
intro
to challenge myself too. So
yeah.
there's every
Manny, you do you know him personally, or do you guys just know each other via social media?
yeah, no, I know him personally. I've trained with him multiple times.
Yeah, so when I talk with him, he's always talking about cross training and training with people who are experts in different disciplines. And he says one of the things that he really enjoys about that is the mental side of having to switch from one to the other and then having to put it all together come competition time or come fight time. Um, that's something that you mentioned with the gamesmanship as well. That's interesting to me because when you get hit with was it passive
Passivity,
thing?
yeah.
Yeah, and you're stuck in parterre. Did I get that right? Parterre, is that what it
Yep.
is? Yeah,
hmm
and you can't move. How are you supposed to get out of that?
Well, it only the maximum time that you'll have on top is 25 seconds. So you really just have to fight for your life for 20 to 25 seconds. And there are defensive tactics that you can do. Like you're allowed to move forward, but mainly you want to keep your weight, like all of your body weight on their hands, and make it difficult for them to lift you or turn you.
So once you're there, you're not actually supposed to be. Oh, that's interesting. Because when you're on the ground in other fights, you're trying to get them off and you're trying to get up and you're trying to do stuff. But once you're on the ground in that situation, it's just 25 seconds of like they get 25 seconds and then you have to not let them turn you basically. And then it goes back to normal. Do you get that part?
Yeah, after the time limit, the rest it. I got parts of it. You have to defend yourself for that time, and then they stand you back up.
Yeah. So like in other disciplines, you are trying to get up, you're trying to defend yourself, you're throwing kicks depending on what it is. But with this, you're just there, the 20 seconds, you try to not get flipped, and then you just get back up.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So yeah, it sounds easy on paper, and then
No,
you
it
get
doesn't sound
somebody on
easy at
top.
all
You,
on
you
paper.
try to break your ribs, or just squeeze the life out of you.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, honestly, parterre is the most stressful position in all of wrestling. Like that's where a lot of high level Greco matches are decided. Usually on your feet, like it's going to be pretty even, right? There aren't a whole lot of moves that are going to surprise you. And if you're, disciplined and stay in good position, you're probably not going to get scored on too big. Like, maybe a step out. If you get pushed out of bounds, it's 1 point. So if you can avoid step outs and, stop people from getting to your body, typically it's going to come down to parterre.
How do you get somebody in that? aside from the passivity?
Takedown. If you take them
So
down,
I'm thinking back to my own, like when you're wrestling with brothers or whatever, to do it without feet or legs seems uh borderline impossible, especially when somebody is as experienced as you. Like I imagine you fighting another you is like it would be stalemate almost.
that's where, dude, the technique in Greco is like world class isn't even like doing it justice. Like it is so like, oh God, yeah, no, people don't know what they're looking at when they're watching a Greco match, but like I'm typically going to take someone down, right? I'm very good at getting to the body, or with the arm drag is one of my best moves. Like I'm gonna get behind them, I'm gonna take their back. Like there's very slick ways that you can do it, and then there's very just direct ways. But you can overwhelm somebody without your legs if you train to do so. But yeah, no, it's difficult. It's difficult, but most people just see like pushing back and forth. But when you're hand fighting in Greco, your head is probably like up above their shoulder. You're not even really looking at where your hands are going. It's all feel, right? So the
Mm.
technique is it's very intuitive, right? You have to know when your opening is going to be there, um, or when it's not going to be there, and when to transition, how to break people open by pushing and pulling and moving them different ways, off balancing them. So yeah, the technique in Greco, and this is why I fell in love with it because it's everything I've ever wanted in wrestling. Like when you think about like a chess match, right? You're moving your pieces and uh you putting yourself in position to defend, right? You don't know how they're going to attack you, but you know that they need to be in a certain spot, right? You know that they're going to try to corner your king, and you know they're going to try to take your pieces, but you don't know how. Um, so the strategy and the technique is just it's out of this world.
As soon as you said the arm drag thing, and I kind of imagined how you would take someone's back, that makes sense. There's a certain part of me where I'm thinking of, was it an adjustment for you to put yourself in a situation where you couldn't not be in contact and therefore almost putting yourself in danger or in bad positions? Was that weird to get used to?
I like that you said that. So one of the biggest things in Greco is risk, right? You have to
Yeah.
take risks. And there's actually a rule that kind of protects people who take risks. Like it's called a slip throw. So if you attempt to throw and you don't expose them, or maybe you land on your back, but they didn't, stop you or defend you, you just like failed on the attempt, then it's like no harm, no foul. You just stand up again. Um, but to that point, yeah, no, dude, I had to take my lumps and bruises, like learning the hard way that, it's better to take space than give space, right? It's better to just be in a good stance and stay relaxed versus like just trying to be tight and stop them from doing everything. Um, so yeah, it was a big adjustment period. Like I said, the first 3 months, like I felt like I didn't know how to wrestle. I was getting thrown multiple times every single day. I wasn't scoring points. Like it was not disheartening. Like I knew that's what it was going to take, uh, but it's never fun to learn that way.
No, it's the only way to learn, I feel like, for a discipline like that. Because otherwise, if you're just you got to figure out where people are getting to you and like throwing you so you can figure out how to stop it or move in a certain way. You have to experience like one of the only things that's like that really because in other sports, if you're trying to work on one-on-one defending or something and somebody beats you, it's like okay, they got by me. Couldn't like but for wrestling or other like martial arts, you're getting injured or potentially injured every time you fail at learning that skill, which I think something is an interesting nuance. I talk with Manny a lot about that also when he was talking about learning to develop new skills and cross train and different things. He's like, yeah, the first time I tried to do this, it didn't go well. I got punched a lot in this way or hit a lot in that way. It's like the risk of failure is way higher. So that's kind of why I asked the other question, because you're putting yourself in a position where like maybe you wouldn't want to get as close because you know that this guy has this move or whatever, but you have to be there's always that moment when you're in contact, I guess, where the potential for something is there. And so like as soon as if you switch off like one little instance, it's kind of like that's a wrap. I think mentally it's very difficult to stay that focused for that long. It's the same thing with arena soccer because we do like 2 minute shifts or so,
Hmm.
and the field is small enough that if you switch off or you let your guy go, it's probably a goal, and you have to stay focused, like very focused for like those 2 minutes because that's it. If they get by you, it's not like a normal soccer field where they got to run 120 yards. They're at the goal already. So
Right.
that mental side as well is stressful, I'm sure.
Yeah, because at the higher level, there's certain guys, that are just really freaking good at things, right? It's like it doesn't matter on your best day, you can try like for example, I wrestled a guy from Russia, but he's representing Serbia at this tournament in Denmark, and he was very good at getting a 2-on-1, right? Like
What does
both
that
the
mean?
other American a 2-on-1 is like where you have two hands on one of their arms, and you basically just like tape it to your body and you capture their arm. It's yours now. And there's a lot of offense that you can do from it. Um, and so he had already wrestled both the other Americans in the bracket. I didn't wrestle him until the second day, and they were both like, "Yeah, dude, like his 2-on-1 is just crazy. Like he's gonna get there." Um, and I was like, "Well, that's just something that we have to deal with." So I actually have this style kind of like technique where I'll put one of my arms behind my back. So I was like, you know what? It's been a while since I've done it, but I'm gonna do that like, in this match. Like if he's going for this left arm that you say, this is the one I need to attack with. Like this is my arm drag arm. It's going behind the back until I get close, and then boom, I'm catching wrists and then trying to go offense from there. So it, there are certain guys that are just they practice this move. They did their 10,000 reps, right? They've done their 100,000 reps. They're going to get there. So you kind of have to accept that and not really game plan to stop them, but at least slow them down, throw them off, and then be able to get to where you want to be first.
Hmm. How much of it is game planning after you get put in that situation? So after he gets you in a 2-on-1, game planning that situation versus stopping him from getting there.
So yeah, he's one of those guys you're not going to stop him from getting there. So
Yeah.
you have to game plan for when it happens, right? You got to have an exit plan or a counter strategy uh, to defeat techniques like that. So for me, luckily, there's you can arm drag out of a 2-on-1. So that was one of the ways that I got out of it. It's called attacking the top hand. So literally, you have they usually have your wrist and like right above your elbow. So this one, if you can just peel that off, then you can fight your way out of it. So there's there's always you've heard like every action has a reaction type of thing. Um, there's a counter to every move. So you just have to again, you just accept like okay, he's gonna get there, but I got to be ready right away. And then you use that opportunity to try to get to where you want to be. But dude, he was freaking good, man. It was like 2-on-1 with the left arm, boom, I'm out. Dude, he's on the right arm. Now he's back on the left. Like there's just certain guys out there like that.
For you trying to get to the Olympics, we'll say when you get to the Olympics, everybody is going to be that good. I would
Dangerous.
right. So how do you how do you deal with that when you are planning? Because all of these guys are going to have something where you're like you're not going to stop them at this whatever thing it is. How much film is there? How much practicing of like when you're preparing, are you bringing guys in that are good at those moves, the guys that you know that you're gonna fight? Since some of it's probably bracket, you don't really know who you're gonna wrestle. How much of it is working on then the stuff that you're like those are your moves that people aren't gonna stop you from doing? Where do you draw it about? Does it depend on who the opponent is? How do you prepare for a tournament where you're wrestling a bunch of different guys because there's a lot of different styles, techniques that you have to be ready for.
Right. So one of the beautiful things about wrestling, and one of the things that appeals to me the most, is that it's such an individual sport and it's very synonymous with life, right? You can't spend too much time and energy really worrying about what other people are going to do or things that you can't control, and just making sure that you're going to be the best that you can be on that day. So, having infallible parterre defense, yeah, that's always important. Like if they can't turn you, then their chances of winning the match goes down by probably 50%. And that being said, like you can't be ignorant of your opponent's abilities. Like you definitely should watch a couple of their matches and understand how they're going to try to attack you, or just positions that they're good at. um, but you can't let that consume your training or really change how you're going about it to improve yourself. um, so you want to just train in a way that makes you want to be that class of danger, right? You want to be at that level where guys are like, oh shit, like don't give them your elbow, right? um, when I was in high school, a lot of coaches that would like try to study me. It's funny, like every year you would hear them like, "Oh, watch out for this, watch out for that." By my senior year, they had a whole laundry list of moves to watch out for, and it's like, okay, you can't spend your time worrying about all of that. You have to just be good enough to, again, get to where you want to be first, so that whatever this guy is good at is no longer an option. So
Mm.
yeah, you have to train to just be dangerous. Be aggressive and technical at the same time. And like I said, don't be ignorant of what your opponents are going to do. But at the end of the day, it's like, no, I'm going to oppose my will first, right? It's going to be the 8-0 tech fall uh, before you get a chance to get your lock where you want it, or to get your arm throw or whatever you're good at.
Interesting. When you're at these tournaments, well, first, are there ever just one-off matches, or is it always tournament style competitions?
Oh, well, so there's a league in Germany called the Bundesliga, and they have like teams where they do dual meets, which is kind of 1v1 per weight class. Uh, so there are a couple leagues like that exist on this side of the planet. In America, we have literally three tournaments. That's it.
Mm.
We have the U.S. Open World Team Trials and the Bill Farrell Memorial International, which is my sponsors, the New York Athletic Club. That's the tournament that we host. So, as an American Greco wrestler, you don't get many opportunities to compete unless you go overseas and seek out tournaments and seek out training camps. So that's uh, that's how you separate yourself from the pack.
Hmm. That makes sense. Okay, so we'll say for in this hypothetical is tournament, and you got your how are you preparing first day of the tournament? What's going on? Like what are you doing? Um, how is the weight cut, not weight cut? Are you already at that sort of weight to know some of the boxing guys or MMA guys will do these crazy sauna things with plastic bags and all sorts of other crazy stuff. Um, what is your preparation like leading up to the tournament? Like the maybe like the week of.
Week of is definitely just maintenance. I'm going down to 60 kilos. Like that's what I just competed in, which in pounds is like 132. Um, I typically during the non-Olympic years compete at 63, which is 138.
How tall are
And
you?
that like 5'7".
Oh, I was gonna say that makes a lot more sense. It's like you don't look like you're 135 pounds.
I'm not. I'm one of those guys that cut weight. Um, yeah, I mean, so on a normal week, so let's back up to like 1 month out, right? I'm like
Okay.
right now I'm a month out and sitting around 68 kilos, 69, which is like right around 150. Um, and then I start to kind of taper my weight down to 65 kilos, 64, 2 weeks out. The week of the tournament, I'm gonna be anywhere between, let's see, 8 or 9 pounds over, right? And I plan on only making weight like that morning of weigh-ins. So in wrestling, we have same day weigh-ins, and you compete 2 hours after weigh-in. So you can't cut 10 pounds the day before, or even three like the morning of, and expect to compete because there's not a whole lot of recovery time. So
No, none.
no, yeah. Since I do cut a lot of weight, I'm cutting pretty close to 20 pounds. I just I try to keep a good eye on it. Like I don't let myself go too crazy. When we're in that 2 week time zone, because it's just not fun, right? And if you don't do it right, you don't have enough water left, then you're just gonna suffer and suffer and suffer and suffer until you're gonna make the weight. Like I've never missed weight, but it's gonna suck that much more when you don't put the work behind it, ahead of time. But yeah, no, I try to stay away from all the crazy like I'm in the sauna, but it's technically illegal to be doing some other stuff like the trash bags and all that. So I'm very good with my nutrition. I
Hmm.
cook most of my meals. I cook almost every meal. I love beets. They're high in nitric oxide. So I make like a beet soup every week. Uh, Good for like blood flow, energy levels. So I try to stay on top of my nutrition, and obviously, I'm training twice a day, leading up into the competition. Usually, people try to taper off like 3 days out. They won't be doing two a days, but because I cut, it's kind of necessary. So, uh, lots of cardio, lots of I don't really miss meals, but the quantities definitely get smaller
Yeah.
closer to weigh-ins, and then the water comes off at the end.
Gotcha. Before we keep going on with the preparation, I want to ask about the weight classes because you mentioned at the beginning in Olympic weight years they cut out six of the weight classes. I think is that what you said?
Like four of them.
Or they cut four of them out, so there's six left
Hmm.
of the 10 is was what I meant.
Right.
Um, what are the differences in weight classes and why are you not at the one that's not 135 or 60 kilos? Like what is there
60,
is there one that's at 68 something like
67 would be the next Olympic weight. So, which is much closer to obviously like my natural weight, but I definitely have a better shot of like making the Olympic team at 60. Um,
hmm
I'm pretty like so I've competed at 67. I'm competitive there, but realistically, the guys that are at the top right now are they're huge, right? They're the ones that are cutting how I am to get to 60 at 67. So like body type wise, technique, all of that stuff plays a factor. So to give myself the best shot, I'm cutting weight because again, Greco, you want to try to lift your opponent, right? I have a much better chance of lifting somebody, even if they're technical, when they weigh between 132 and 138 versus somebody that's 147 or 160, right? So
yeah.
to me, it gives me it lets me have an advantage because of my size and strength, because you're essentially like deadlifting another human being. So I'm gonna lift these
Yeah.
little guys.
Yeah, for sure. So why did they cut out four of them for Olympics?
Dude, it's beyond me. I'm not getting paid enough to understand why.
Okay.
um, but yeah, no, it's definitely a disservice. Like that's one of the biggest things that athletes will complain about, in the wrestling world is like, why are we losing weight classes? Like it's only going to grow the sport if we add weight classes. It's going to keep people in the sport longer, right? They're going to live healthier lives. Like I don't want to have to lose 24 pounds, but that's what's required of me right now because of how things are set up, right?
Yeah.
If we added four more weight classes, there's no chance I'd be wrestling at 60.
Would you be like 63, 64 or something like that?
Yeah, 63 is great. Honestly, if it was like 65 in a perfect world, that's where I'd be. Like 143, I could make that no problem. I'd be healthy, I'd be strong. I wouldn't I don't even need a sauna to make 65 kilo. I really
Hmm.
don't. But to get these last couple kilos off, like, yeah, I got to squeeze out the water somehow, right?
Yeah. Okay, so you get to the tournament, you do the weigh in, you make weight. first match, are
First,
you
you got to put back, right? After you make weight, I'm only at scratch weight for like a couple hours. I step on the scale and then immediately I start drinking pure water, and then I eat a beet, like a raw beet. And then after I eat my beets, I'll have some fruit and some form of protein. But I typically don't like overeat right after the weigh-in. It's just I stay hungry actually throughout the weekend. That's just you have to weigh in twice. So you weigh in Friday, and if you win enough matches and wrestle the next day, then you have to weigh in again. So uh, I put on more fluids than I eat, but definitely have to like rehydrate as much as possible.
okay?
But yeah,
So you've rehydrated, you've eaten your beets and your fruit, and first match comes. Is this how much of a feeling out is the first 15, 20 seconds? Is there a feeling out period? Are you guys just going for it already from the beginning? Would you say it was 3 minute periods?
right. Um, yeah, yeah, there's a feeling out process. I have my feeling out is attacks. I'm coming out the whistle and I'm throwing a couple arm drags from space or try to go reach around. Uh, but depending on how they react to that is going to determine kind of my next step. Like, am I going to sit and pummel? Do I need to wear them down? Right? Are they really strong? Am I going to try to keep them off of me? Uh, you know, there's there's definitely a feeling out process, but most guys, especially at the higher level Greco, are more concerned about the passivity, right? Everybody really wants to work and get the other guy put down first, so that they can build a lead. Because in the next period, you're probably going to go down. The refs kind of try to make it even in that way. Um, but yeah, you want to try to avoid like having a 1-1 match because if the score is tied, there's criteria, and the first criteria is last point scored. So
Hmm.
if you give up the passivity in the first, um, or sorry, so say you go on top first, and then you're not able to score the next period, they're gonna put you down, and now you're losing 1-1 on criteria. So then you have to go work and score. So you want to get the first passivity and try to score while you're fresh. So you can have that 3-0, 3-1 lead going into the second period, and then even if you're able to defend, then you're probably going to win the match.
The last 30 seconds of the second period, if you're winning, must be not a fun time.
Dude, oh my, dude, it is stressful as fuck, man. Like this guy's literally coming at you trying to kill you, right? Um, Usually that's when the most throws happen, and it's
Yeah.
because you can't, you're gonna give up 2 points if you just back away and try to evade, right? They're gonna hit you with a caution in two. So you have to stand and bang and pummel and just be in supreme position. But yeah, the last 30 seconds, like they're going down swinging, and you can't run because it's Greco.
Yeah. Okay, Matt, so match number two. We'll say you won because you probably
Hmm.
did.
I usually win my first match. Yeah.
Oh, good. So okay, so second match, is the feeling out process lessened because everybody's warmed up at this point? Or like what is the warming up process for you guys?
Yeah. I mean, the gas tank is definitely on point by the second match. Right after the first match is over. So for this last weight cut, like I felt like garbage. I still won, but I felt like garbage. Like my lungs were on fire. Um, so you get a little more fluid in you, and you have some downtime to recover. Usually, I do a small cool down, so I'll jog for like 5 minutes, or like get on a bike just to lower my heart rate, kind of at a slower pace than just stopping altogether. Um, but yeah, by the second match, like it's a go mode whole time. So that's typically where, yeah, I'm throwing off more attacks. I'm going for more throws. Like I'm trying to lift when I get on top instead of gut wrench, because the energy levels are just up.
How many matches in a day normally?
Normally, you'll wrestle 3 matches in a day, um, 2 or 3 matches, right? Most of the tournaments are double elimination. So if you lose twice, obviously you had your 2 matches and you're done. But if you win 1 match, you're gonna wrestle 2 more.
Is the third more similar to the second one in terms of energy levels? Like how much does it take out of you physically and mentally? Because 6 minutes is not that long, but also 6 minutes of constant mental and physical focus with no breaks can be very
Hmm.
draining. But also for people training for it, they're ready for it. So are people waning down at all? Like second period of the third match, or is everyone still pretty go time?
Um, It yes, that definitely varies. There's some guys that just don't have a gas tank, right? And you can kind of smell that, you can see it, you know who they are. So you're trying to break those guys within the first period and then make them suffer in the second period. Like there's nothing worse than being gassed and having to score points, and it's somebody that has a good gas tank, they're not going to let you, you know, even when you get your chance on top, like if you're worrying about being tired, you're probably not going to try to lift your opponent. So then you just have to defend a gut wrench and then you're back up to your feet, right?
Mm,
So there's like, dude, the gamesmanship, it's real. But I train to be able to wrestle, 6 matches full pace. Like gas tank is definitely one of the things that I have on my side. So um, I can usually smell when guys are fading. Um, and yeah, so for me, it really doesn't matter how many matches I have in the day. Like, I think the second day is probably where the fatigue starts to set in. But on the first day, I'm on go for it. If we have 6 matches, we got six. But after having to make weight again, so after wrestling, say I had 5 matches the first day, right? I'm going on to the second day, or I had 4 matches or whatever. I'm probably gonna be 2.5 kilos over because of just rehydrating and eating enough to stay fueled out through the day. So you still have another match, right, with the cardio machines to get back down to weight. And so
that's
I think,
crazy,
mhm. No,
honestly.
it is absolutely insane, dude. It's stressful, but when you have your adrenaline going, um, it makes it possible, but it's still not fun. Like I will start to fatigue by my second or third match on the second day. That's when I'm like, okay, like I don't have my fifth gear right now. Like
But
I'm not going through
everybody
the
is at
motions.
that point, though,
Yeah,
no?
everybody is. Everybody is. Uh, unless you're cheating. But we're not gonna get into that right now.
No, no, no,
But
no.
yeah, by that point, yeah, like that's when the metal sets in, right? It's like, okay, I'm running off of like heart and determination right now because I've been through so much preparing for the tournament, wrestling in the tournament, now needing to finish it.
The second day is it, right? And that's the last day. Usually there's not a third day.
Yeah, no, most of the tournaments are 2 days.
Yeah, that's
I
wild.
it,
So
I
when you
probably
get
wouldn't do it
into,
if we had to weigh in 3 times.
yeah, that's not healthy.
Right.
So we'll say you get to gold medal match, second day, you've wrestled at this point. Generally speaking, this is your seventh match of the weekend, something like that.
Now, if you stay in the winners bracket, you're gonna wrestle less. Um, so typically, if you're in the gold medal match, you probably wrestled 4 times. That might be your fifth match.
Hmm. Okay.
Hmm. Yeah, and you get a longer break because the finals is always like a show. So you're going to be like one of the last matches of the day. There's going to be an intermission before they, set up for the finals. So typically going to a gold medal match, like even and bronze medal match too, like you've had time to rest and relax. You know you're not weighing in again, so you're probably going to be like 8 pounds heavier than you were that morning. Um,
That's
that's
so nuts.
that's rewarding. It's very rewarding to be in that seat. Um, but yeah, there's a lot that you have to go through to get there.
100%. So I'm just pulling up the message that you sent me about your tournament Um, you finished ninth. Well, you're not prepared for the parterre. What did you mean by so? What did you mean by you weren't prepared for the parterre in your last tournament? In terms of like, you only gave a one takedown, so that seems good for
Right.
me not knowing anything. But what about it weren't you prepared for? Because you obviously know it's in the rules and you know kind of how it works. But like, were there different techniques, different styles, different things that the guys over in Europe were doing that you weren't ready for?
Yeah, definitely. It was very humbling because I definitely tried to train my parterre, but a lot of the times I'm training on my own, right? So I don't actively have somebody giving me different looks and turning me. So yeah, no, it was difficult because there's different ways to defend a gut wrench, right? Depending on how they're setting it up or what side they want to go to and all that stuff. So if you're not constantly under that pressure and getting those looks, you're gonna get surprised. You're gonna get exposed a little bit, and that's basically what happened. So, um, like I said, parterre is the most stressful position in all of wrestling. So yeah, it was definitely like I was aware that guys were gonna be good on top here, but like I said, just completely unprepared for not completely unprepared, but not prepared enough uh, to be able to defend enough to win the match because again, that's what it's going to come down to is being able to defend down there.
Gotcha. Okay, so you've got this tournament, and then U.S. Open is coming up. And in the world of Greco-Roman wrestling, in terms of structure, organization, what is the U.S. Open for you? And then I think the World Championships are in September, I think you said when we were talking beforehand. So what does all this mean to you to wrestling in terms of is the US Open your Super Bowl and then the World Championships is the World Cup, or how, like, what is the structure? What is the pinnacle of it for you guys? And how do you qualify, get there, tournament structure, all that stuff?
Yeah, so this is really kicking off our season, and it's laying the groundwork for who Team USA is going to be this year. The winner of the U.S. Open will immediately go to Pan Am's like the following week, and then they will go straight to our last wrestle off is called Final X. So the winner of the U.S. Open goes straight to Final X, and you don't wrestle again until June. Everyone else that takes top five or top six at the U.S. Open will have to compete at the World Team Trials. Um, the winner of the World Team Trials will wrestle the winner of the U.S. Open
Is
at
this
Final
per weight
X.
class?
Yes.
Okay.
hmm And so basically, the national team will be decided uh, in May. So after the World Team Trials, whoever takes second there is going to be number three on the national team. Whoever wins Final X is going to be one, and whoever loses in Final X is going to be two. And so our national team will be decided, after at that point. And so those guys will be training at the Olympic Training Center or with their own clubs, and they have their own calendar at that point to prepare for the World Tournament in September. And yeah, the World Tournament is the pinnacle. So other countries kind of have a different style. Like in Denmark, they just select who they think is the best guy to represent the country.
Mm.
So some weight classes they don't even send anyone because they don't feel like that person's going to be competitive enough.
Oh, that's interesting. That must be pretty shitty if you're the best guy in that weight class in the country and they're like, nah, we're not gonna send you.
It hurts. I've definitely talked to some guys. They feel slighted, but what are you gonna do? Just keep
Yeah,
getting better.
that's crazy. Damn, man, you
You
like
hate to
won
see
your
it.
you won your whole ass tournament and they're like announcements are coming out and it's like weight class, nobody. You're like, yo, oh, that's
Yeah,
nuts.
yeah, no, bro. That would hurt my feelings for sure.
That's insane. Have you
I might
competed
have
at
to
the
move to
world?
Sweden.
Go ahead.
No, I've not been. I was gonna say I would just move to Sweden if that happened.
Okay. So you've not competed at the World Championships before?
No, no. This is I'm trying to make my first world team this year. Um, I'm 27 years old. Typically, the average age of a senior world team member is like 29. So people still consider me young, but I've covered a lot of ground in a short amount of time. So I'm like, if I don't, who will? It's time. Let's do it.
Yeah. So where are you feeling for your weight class? How are you feeling in terms of competition levels, where you think you'll be at on paper? You feel prepared? You feel like you've got a good shot? You on the outside looking in, you got to have a perfect day to squeak in, or are you feeling like you're pretty good, got a good shot to get into the team?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely competitive with the best guys in our country right now. At 63, um, I'm third. Right? There's one guy I haven't wrestled and then one guy that's beaten me. Everybody else that's beaten me before, like I got revenge. So I this year, like I definitely have ascended to a level of like it's very realistic and it should be my goal to have the number one spot. So
Hell
60,
yeah.
I haven't necessarily wrestled everybody yet. The guys that are good are really good. But yeah, it's not one of those scenarios where it's like I need to have a perfect day to have a chance. Like, no, I'm in the mix. I need to fix these little things, and then we're gonna go to war.
That's sick. That's awesome. So for the Olympic trials, then you go down to 60. Are you in the same mindset? Like you're ready, you're there, you're good to go?
Yeah, if I make the world team this year, then Olympic trials next year is going to be a lot easier. Um, you get this system is kind of like flawed for whoever's doing well, but yeah, I guess it's kind of a reward. So if you finish top five at the world tournament this year, then you qualify your weight class to compete at the Olympic Games, and whoever does that will get to sit out into the finals of the Olympic trials. So there's a lot of incentive to win a world medal this year because next year it's like, okay, I really only have to compete weigh in one time and then I'm on my way to the Olympics.
Dude, oh my gosh, that's nuts. Yeah, you should probably win.
Yeah, it's there's no time like the present.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So what's the
So that's
longe
why
what
it's like it's super important to send the right person to the world tournament this year because there are guys that, have constantly been making the team, but then they can't perform on a world level, right? They can't beat the European guys. There's XYZ. Um, and qualifying the weight class is super important. We had two weight classes last year where, you win the Olympic trials, but you can't compete in the Olympics because nobody qualified the weight.
oh damn. Yeah.
Dude, it's nuts.
That
So
seems it seems like somebody should switch the weight class thing. Like they should match up. I guess people like doing stuff their own way. That's strange. And the only people
mhm.
it hurts are you guys, which is the most annoying thing.
I'm trying to tell you, bro. We got a rough out here.
There's so many sports that are like that, where you've got administrators that have never played or competed at whatever the sport is, and they're like, "No, we should have it this way." All the
Right. When
players and coaches are
everyone
like,
else is like,
"No,
no.
like that's not a good idea."
Yeah.
Damn,
No, yeah, qualifying the weight class is like cutthroat. And there's only like four opportunities to do that. So you have
that's
your
crazy.
Pan American Championships. You can be a world medalist. And then there's two qualifying events. There's like one straight up Olympic qualifier, and then there's a last chance. So
Yeah. What's the longevity like for a Greco wrestling career? Are dudes in their late 30s, 40s, or you got that window of mid to late 20s to early 30s and you're done?
the shelf life for Greco is actually much longer than it is for freestyle, right? I think because we're not getting our ACLs twisted up, right? There's no leg grabbing. Um, can typically train and build up your body in a way that it's gonna last. So, I would say people usually peak in their early 30s in Greco, and then you can continue on into your late 30s.
So this will be sick for you. We'll say you make the Olympic team next year because you're going to.
Yes,
But
sir.
the one after, you'd be 32. So that would be the one where, in your head, I assume you've thought about this already.
It's at home. It's in Los Angeles.
Oh, it is too, as well.
Yeah, I have to win that one.
Oh my God. That's the same as the US for the World Cup. Everyone was like, "Oh, we're chilling for this one," but 2026, it's in the US, so we got to do well that one. 2028's in LA. Well, that'll be cool, especially if you have the experience from Worlds and from the Olympics. This go around, you'll know what to expect because I'm sure a lot of the fanfare and stuff from that is going to be not necessarily off-putting, but always the first time you're there, not having to worry about any of it. The second go around just makes it that little bit easier,
Yeah,
I
I
feel
call that
like.
happy to be here syndrome. You know,
Yeah.
you make it to a big event, and you're kind of like happy to be there, not really focused on like, what it's going to take to win it. So it happens, but you can try not to avoid it, but like I'm not that kind of guy. Like I'm going to be happy to be there
You should
because
be.
you worked so hard for it. Yeah, exactly. You should be, but yeah, there's going to be other Olympics that I won't have that same feeling. And usually, once I go and see a tournament, um, when I come back and compete, I do better. That's just how it goes.
Yeah. There's something about the reward for getting there in the first place. Something the Olympics or a world tournament where you've made it to the absolute pinnacle of your sport or your craft, and you're sitting there with, oh, these are the best 10 guys in the world at the thing. Like you've gotten to that point already of the amount of people that exist in the world for you to be top 10 at whatever thing that is. Like that's bonkers anyways. And then you got these sickos like Jordan who are like, no, I'm going to kill everybody anyways. But there's something to be said for appreciating what you've accomplished. I think you or anyone who gets to that point, I think there's nothing wrong with stopping to smell the roses to a
Hmm.
certain extent. But at the same time, you got there because you want to win, and so like that drive will kick in at some point. You'll be like, all right,
Oh yeah, for
that's
sure.
great. Opening ceremonies was nice. I'm gonna fuck this dude up.
Exactly. Yeah, so I'm definitely planning on competing through 2028. We'll see what happens after that. Uh, I definitely want to go into coaching full time, open up a Greco Academy, and I have a nonprofit called Greco United, and our mission is to, spread awareness and create opportunities for Greco-Roman wrestling in America. And getting behind that, and right now I'm kind of like the face of the operation. Boots on the ground, like in the field, like paving the path. And then at the end of what I'm doing as an athlete, I really want to be able to pour in and give back kind of tenfold. Because what I'm doing right now it's selfish. It has to be, right? Um, but there's so much potential, especially with this younger generation. Like they actually are excited about Greco, but the opportunities don't exist right now. And there aren't a whole lot of people that are actively trying to change that. But my business partner and I, we're thinking long term in that field as well.
Mm, that'll be good. That actually brings up an interesting point when you're saying you plan on training and competing through 2028. How how is the income for you in this sport? Do you have to have another job, or are you doing enough? Are you coaching to make ends meet? How is it working? There's a lot of sports, as you know, individual ones that don't make a lot of money, but the ones at the Olympics are the best in the world, but they have to have other jobs or other things that they're doing to make ends meet because there's not enough money in it as say basketball, soccer, or something else.
Right. Yeah.
How is it for you guys?
So yeah, I'm a full time wrestler. I sponsored by the New York Athletic Club, and they spend a lot of money on me when it comes to like training and tournaments and stuff. They take good care of me. But outside of that, just to support myself, I have a couple private clients that I work with. You know, training. I charge them enough to, you know, kind of make ends meet, and then my Instagram is monetized. Like I said, we have the Greco United. I have a merchandise store, and If I really need to, I can drive for Uber. Like when I'm traveling, when I'm going to be traveling, I need extra money. I'll drive Uber, and I have a little flyer in the back of the car. I put it like right in the middle, so when people sit in the car, they pick it up and read it, and it's got everything about my journey and what I'm doing. So that usually draws in pretty good tips. I have my hands on a lot of different things, but working in corporate America and trying to do what I'm doing in the amount of time that I'm doing it was not realistic. So
No,
I kind of quit all of that and
no,
jumped headfirst.
not even a little bit. Not even a little bit. I know the feeling from soccer and the levels that you got to get at to make it to the next level where you're actually doing it. It's like it's not feasible. So
Right.
you got someone who's your boss or whatever emailing you at 6 p.m. on a Thursday, and you're like, no, I'm trying to train, I'm trying to do this, trying to do that, and then you don't even get enough sleep half the time either, which is also not fun. But
Yeah, that and for me it was the outside energies that were like just constantly trying to bring me down, right? It's
yeah,
like people really they get jealous or they don't appreciate like what I'm doing, and it's already hard enough like you know uh taking this path and committing to it. But then when you have other people that really don't have any meaning in your life, just kind of throwing darts and adding negativity and negative energy, it's like it makes it unsustainable, right? It
yeah.
starts to affect other aspects of your life. So for me, I was like, you know what? I'm good. I'll struggle for a couple of years if I have to, but the ends are going to justify the means.
Oh, for sure. And then you get used to kind of not having a lot of money, and you don't need that, not having that stability or being used to not having the stability of the paycheck, like being prepared to take the risk, like we were talking about earlier, of
Hmm.
financially. That helps too, because you're like, nope, I'm going to bet on myself to that. I'm going to go to the World Championships this year, and then I'm going to go to the Olympics, and then I'm going to do all these things. Then you're not worried, like, oh, what if I don't get paid? You're like, I'll just drive Uber and put flyers in the back so people feel bad for me and they give me money. Like,
They need to know who they're riding with.
yeah, exactly. And that if you get in a drive by, you'll protect them. So,
Exactly.
but there's something to be said for that, the risk taking and the willingness to put yourself through the not safe option, which I think also is why you're probably good at what you're doing, because there's a lot of risk taking within the sport itself. So,
Yeah, it means something. And like I
yeah,
said,
for
wrestling
sure.
is so synonymous with life. Like it's so you have to become a better human if you want to improve at wrestling, right? Like it
Go
it,
on that.
it
What do you mean?
takes it takes that level of like everybody talks about discipline, right? Everybody talks about like hard work, but honesty, trust, loyalty, right? You have to have all those things for yourself and for your team. When I say team, my team is very small. It's just like me. I have a couple private coaches and training partners, right? Knowing and believing that, you know, we're doing what's right for each other and for ourselves. And, sometimes having empathy, understanding somebody else's situation, whether it's a training partner, whoever it is, um, continuing to grow those qualities makes you more confident when competition day comes, right? It makes you more self-aware and honest with, you know, your game plan, your strategy, your ability, right? What you're going to be able to do and how you're going to approach it. So the better human being that you are, the better chances you have of overcoming adversity and ultimately, you know, another human being who is trying to overcome you.
Fair enough. I think you just put a nice bow on it. We've been chatting for almost an hour and a half at this point.
Nice.
Any last Nichols thoughts, things you want to plug?
Yeah, just for anybody watching that might be, keeping up with my journey, or maybe, this is first time coming across it. Greco-Roman wrestling is the coolest style. All right, you heard it here first. It's super important to many people around the world. The most elite athletes in the world are the ones that wrestle Greco, and that's no shade to freestyle. But if you want to become the best wrestler that you can possibly be, even if you don't choose to compete in it, train Greco. It'll change your life.
You are the best ambassador for this sport, I swear.
Thank you, sir.
All
Somebody's got to
right.
do it. Find
Yeah,
out who
for
will.
sure. All right, guys, if you want to find Logan or any of his stuff, all the links will be in the description. Like always, we will see you guys next time. Peace.
Stay savvy.
I like that. That's a good one.